Welcome to The Critical Path, Greater Vancouver Realtors' professionalism and innovation-focused podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Lalime. Each episode, we sit down with industry leaders to discuss the critical issues affecting our profession and the paths we must take to overcome them. Now, let's face it, cybersecurity probably isn't the first thing most realtors think about when starting their day. But with everything we do online now, emails, contracts, client data, it's becoming harder to ignore the risks. A hacked inbox or leaked files isn't just a technical headache. It can be a serious threat to your business and reputation. So what can you actually do to stay ahead of cybercriminals without becoming a tech expert? That's where the Real Estate Errors and Omissions Insurance Corporation of BC, or simply REEOIC or E&O, as the provider of cost-effective professional liability insurance, loss prevention tools, and legal support services for the protection of BC's real estate licensees, comes in. On today's episode, we're talking with Andrew Martin, founder and CEO of Dynarisk, a cybersecurity company that's teamed with E&O Insurance to offer realtors powerful protection tools at no cost. He'll break down the real threats agents face, the small mistakes that can lead to big problems, and what you can start doing today to lock things down. This is one conversation that just might save your business. Andrew, welcome to The Critical Path today.
Thanks, Jesse. It's great to be here.
Now, before we get into it, I'd like to start with a credibility question just so we can get our listeners off on the right foot, understanding your level of expertise. Tell listeners a little bit about your background.
Well, I do have a confession to make. I was a hacker
Dun,
when
dun,
I was a kid.
dun. Now, this is where if it was a
Yes.
different podcast, we'd have some audio come in with the scary organ music. But so, Andrew, you were a hacker in your past. Explain a little bit more about that.
I was. So, I fulfilled the stereotype. I didn't have a hooded sweatshirt, but I did, teach myself hacking skills from my parents' basement, which, by the way, was in Toronto. In Canada. I am Canadian.
Good Canadian boy.
I wanted to teach myself how to cheat in video games, believe it or not, and it just so happens that the skills I used to cheat in said video games were also the same kind of skills that you could use to hack into people's computer systems. But I very quickly realized after I broke into some computer systems, places I wasn't supposed to be, that I would have left a trail of breadcrumbs along the way, and if someone looked in the right places, maybe then police would come knocking on my parents' door, and I did not want that to happen. So I stopped doing the bad stuff and then went to work for banks instead.
And that, that's not an uncommon thing, in the criminal world, right? Where somebody maybe, and not that you were a criminal, but, you bring a different perspective when you have some of that kind of background and then you start working for the good guys, right?
Yeah, hackers don't follow the rules. Obviously, they're trying to break into places, they're trying to do things they're not supposed to do, and most people that inhabit the regular world, people follow the rules, right? In your corporate life, in your personal life, most people follow the rules, and so to understand how the hackers operate, you have to understand how the rules can be broken, so that you can go and look for those same types of things. And so I worked for a number of Canadian banks, CIBC, RBC, and others. And I used my skills to help protect the customers of those banks, so that they wouldn't fall victim to hackers like me.
So from your perspective, as somebody who's kind of steeped in this, do you think people in general are just too lax when it comes to cybersecurity?
Absolutely, but it's not from a lack of desire to want to be more secure. Everybody knows that this is something that they should do. They just need help, and so that laxness just comes from maybe a lack of knowledge, or for companies perhaps a lack of budget, or not prioritizing it appropriately. But there are actually lots of things you can do. Some of them are very easy, low cost, no cost. And so we just need to educate people on what some of those things are, so that they can go in and take action and better protect themselves.
Yeah, you mentioned it a little bit in your response just before. I mean, from you see a lot of these kind of cases. What are some of the kind of cybersecurity blind spots that business people, like maybe realtors, for example, typically have? Because some people might think that they are kind of on top of things, right?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. So, realtors are very similar to other businesses, similar types of blind spots, but a few of those are, don't go off and download software that might be free, but from not very reputable sources. This software can be sort of booby trapped with viruses implanted by hackers. So when you go off and Google for free audio recording software or a free CRM, etc., and download something onto your computer, it could have a virus in it, which then steals all of your passwords and all of your information, and then sends that off to the hackers. Another one is lack of an antivirus or an endpoint security product on your laptop or your PC, your Mac, etc. That's not scanning for viruses that could make their way onto your computer. Um, some commercial realtors, they might use an IT hosting company that is not very good, right? It's just like anything, you get what you pay for. And there are some IT hosting providers that are very good, very secure, you know, not a lot to worry about. And then there are others where, they have a lot of holes in their systems, unfortunately. And so while the realtor might think, hey, I'm doing everything to manage my passwords and everything's securely, but if their hosting company or their email provider is not the most secure, then that might be the way the hackers get in. And even if your internet hosting provider gets compromised, it will still affect you as the realtor or your business. And then, of course, the always popular two-step verification, right? Some people just don't enable it. They think it's a pain. I assure you, you need to turn it on wherever you can. Very, very important. And then for commercial businesses, sometimes there's just no backups. And if a hacker ransoms your systems and you have no backups, you're paying the ransom, which can be a lot of money, which we'll probably discuss a little bit later.
I always think it's curious because we do have, we get some feedback sometimes, and you were talking about people finding things too onerous, right? And that's something that we hear from time to time too. Is that, well, this is, my bank doesn't even make me do this. From a hacker's perspective, Andrew, what kind of information really is valuable? What are they looking for?
Well, first, they're looking to gain entry to systems, and to do that, they will look for software vulnerabilities. You haven't updated your Apple iPhone in 6 months. It's had a vulnerability found in it, and the hackers can use that to gain access to your phone, or they will steal your username and password either directly from your computer using a virus, or they'll hack a third-party company and steal your passwords from there. So they're first looking to gain some initial access onto a device or a phone or a server. And then once they do that, they can do a number of different things. Number one, they can hold your data to ransom. So they'll take all of your stuff, they'll take a copy of it. They will then encrypt or lock down all of your data or your computers, so you actually can't even log into them, and they will hold that to ransom. And if you don't pay the ransom, you could have your business operations interrupted for days, weeks, months. Imagine not being able to run payroll. Imagine not being able to sign a new contract with a client. Some really, really catastrophic outcomes can happen there. And
Really?
then, of course, the hackers could then just threaten to post all of your information for everybody to see, and that can be hugely damaging to reputations. If that happens to a realtor, you might find that your clients are not calling you, and that could be for reasons like this.
And with a bigger business and a bigger profile, right? It's easy to see how they might have a bullseye on their back for a hacker. A lot of our members are smaller business people. What are some of the nuances there that are members who are maybe operating a small brokerage should be considering?
Yeah, so first of all, everybody's at risk, large and small. It's just that the big hacks make the headline, but I assure you, small to medium-sized businesses are being hacked just as much, if not more frequently, than the large companies. It just doesn't make it into the news, right? Reporters don't want to throw small businesses under the bus and impact their business. So these types of things do happen all the time, and they don't make it into a public forum. Um, we actually scanned a portfolio of about 450 brokerages in the province of British Columbia, just using freely available information. You can just go off and Google real estate brokerages in BC and get a whole list of those companies. So we scanned 450 of them, and we found an average cyber exposure score of 4.7 out of 10.
Okay.
Uh,
And what
10
does that
being
mean?
yeah, 10 being very unlikely you're going to get hacked, right? Your controls are great. Not a lot of stolen data is out there. There's no such thing as 100% security, but you know, all things considered, you're looking pretty good. And a 1 out of 10 is you've already been hacked, and we have evidence of that. And so, about 120 of those realtors that we scanned had a score of 2 out of 10.
Mm.
So that's about 25% of the realtors that we scanned. And the issues that we found could be stolen usernames and passwords. It could be someone at that real estate brokerage was hacked. It could be ransom. It could be hackers have stolen some data, but they haven't yet acted on it because they just have so much of it. So it's about a one in four chance that your brokerage is at very high risk
So
of
this
getting hacked.
this is a real problem right now because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, the average kind of 4.7, that's not even quite middle of the road, which is probably not where you want to be on a cybersecurity effectiveness scale, right? And the fact that 25% are kind of in that red zone. This is a real issue right now for people, right? Are there any horror stories that can specifically point to from the real estate sector? Because I know there's a lot of, you mentioned there's so many that just don't even get reported on, right? But, something that might kind of hit home for our listeners.
There is a lot of activity going on in Canada and in the real estate sector in particular. Realtors have access to lots of interesting data. They're corresponding with very interesting people, very interesting companies. They're engaging in very large transactions where lots of money is changing hands, and that is a great place for a hacker to hang out. I've just got some stats here, but uh, the average loss due to a ransom for a Canadian small to medium sized company is about $800,000. Average ransom loss for a mid market company between $2 and $6 million. And then on the smaller end, if you just have a fraudulent funds transfer case where a hacker impersonates your CFO, financial controller, or a supplier, and sends some fake invoices, the average loss there is about 100 grand. And so you're looking at a 6 to 7 figure loss in any one of these particular scenarios, and especially for those small to medium sized businesses, even if you have the hundred grand loss, that could be not making payroll, right? That could be clients leaving, reputations damaged, could be laying off a staff member, right? And then God forbid you have one of those 800K average ransomware losses, and that could be closure of the company, significant restructuring, um, lots of very potential bad outcomes there.
Okay, so that sets the landscape up pretty well. And I'll just, maybe to recap, because I think some of these numbers are pretty eye popping, right? We've got an audit that you and your and Dynarisk have done. There's been about 450 brokerages throughout the province that you've looked at. We're looking at about a 50% score for the effectiveness in general. And you just went through a couple of really high profile recent cases of real examples of how these things are going down. Ride to the rescue here for us, Andrew. You've partnered with E&O to deliver some cybersecurity software for BC's Realtors. Tell us about how this partnership came about and more about how our members can access these tools.
Well, we first started in the Canadian real estate market with REX, a provider of E&O and D&O insurance to realtors in the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. We had some great results there, finding similar types of issues with some of their realtors. We've handled cases from some of their realtors where we helped them not send fraudulent wire transfers to the wrong place and help them not lose hundreds of thousands of dollars to cyber criminals. And so, they put us in touch with REOIC over in BC to replicate the same type of program there, which is fantastic. Referrals from existing customers really speaks volumes of the work that we're doing together. Um, and so REOIC said, we'd like to have you take a look at the realtors in our province. Like I said, we ran that scan. The results sort of spoke for themselves, and they asked, how could we make this available to our membership base in the province. And I think what's great about what we're doing with REOIC is the program is free, right? REOIC is the one that's paying the bill, um, and it's coming out of their budget for the benefit of all members, and that means that we can onboard a large number of companies all in one shot, rather than needing to go off and do individual sales to individual companies, which is quite a lot of work. So we've done a very bulk approach to providing our cyber risk management tools so that it can be given to all members, um, for free.
So these are free tools, right? And I say tools because there are more than one program here for depending on what you're doing for your business, right? So as I understand it, there's something that's a little bit more focused towards realtors, agents, and then a program that's a little bit more tailored towards brokerages. Is that
Sure. So for individual agents, we've got software called Cyber Expert. It's sort of like a cyber credit score. We assess your risk of getting hacked, give you a score, tell you how to improve the score. The average score on first sign up is about 450 out of 999, which is okay. Um, we have people sign up and their score on day one is 900. Fantastic. We have lots of other people who sign up on day one and their score is 250, and they have a lot of things to do. One of the components for this is dark web monitoring, where we are looking for your stolen details being traded by hackers in their forums and chat channels. And if we see your information being stolen and traded, we will then alert you so you can go take action on that. Uh, the second tool is called Breach Defense. It's for brokerages, and it's a suite of cyber risk management tools. We do a vulnerability scan. We do this dark web scan looking for hacker chatter, hackers talking about breaking into the brokerage. And then we do some employee training and awareness, where the administrator of the breach defense platform can send some training content to the staff members of the brokerage, with content around, what is two-step verification? Why is it important? How do you turn it on? What are phishing emails? How do you spot them? What are fraudulent SMS messages? How do you spot those, etc.? And so that'll both, train the staff on how to be more cyber aware, but it'll also help you comply with different contractual or regulatory requirements you might have around training and awareness for staff members. And then the last item there that we're working with REOIC to provide to members is a cyber helpline. So you can just call us up 24 by 7, 365 and say, help, I clicked a phishing email. What do I do? I had money stolen from my bank account. What should I do next? We've seen strange pop-ups on a work laptop. What do we do? And we will help you, or help the person calling in to resolve that issue, or if we can't resolve it, tell you what the next step would be. This is, over the phone, right? We're not deploying boots on the ground right into your premises, but we'll help you with what that next step is, and hopefully prevent whatever that thing is, from becoming worse, so that the agent or the brokerage can deal with it better.
I think people really appreciate that kind of direct connection too, right? Which is, when you're dealing with some of these things and it can maybe seem a little scary or overwhelming, it can be really helpful to just be talking to somebody, right? Who can maybe help you, understand what's happening a little bit better. I wanted to just go back because I had a couple little follow-ups on some of what you mentioned. So that score that you had mentioned before, right? And you were talking about how some people maybe have a bit of a lower score on that first day, and they need to kind of snap themselves into action. Does that just kind of go back to what we were talking about before about some of those kind of basic steps that you should be taking? Is that kind of the reason why one of those low scores might show up? And yeah, how would somebody just kind of start boosting their score right away?
Yeah, so we deliver a tailored action plan to that agent with the list of the 3, 5, 7, 10 things they need to do to improve their score. Some of those things are super easy to do, right? Hey, your iPhone is 3 versions out of date. Tap settings, go to help, about, apply the update, restart, done, right? Takes
Hmm.
10 minutes for you to do. That could be something that's very simple. Something, a little bit more complicated might be, you're not using a password manager. And then we'll recommend a free password manager for you to download. There's a bunch out there. You don't have to pay. You can pay for additional functionality if you want, but there's lots of good free password managers out there. Or it could be something, very involved, like your laptop isn't encrypted, and there's like a 12-step process you need to follow to do that. And not everyone is going to do all of these things, but the important thing is that you do something to start improving your score. And you might do one thing today, two things next month, two things 6 months from now, and it's just slowly getting you to improve your score over time.
I love that comes with a kind of like a tailored solution, right? Because that's something that I think will really help our members who sign up for this. Give them a real solid action plan for what they need to do to get safer. The other follow up I wanted to ask you about was employee training, and I think that's a really important thing to come back to. Um, we do a lot of that here. We have a pretty robust cybersecurity program here that's um, helped me, and I know a lot of other people who work here. Understand and look for some of those red flags. Some of those kind of misspellings in a URL or within the body of the email that you might give you away, right? So talk a little bit about that, right? Because our members are oftentimes employing teams of people who may or may not really know what to do in some of these situations.
There's a couple things we do on that front. So, like I mentioned, that we've got some training content, which are courses, minute long, 2 minute long videos that walk you through what's phishing, what's smishing, what's vishing, right? Lots of acronyms.
All the
Explains
ishings.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, all the things you need to do to look out for those things. Um, then we've got a phishing simulator where you can go off and schedule fake phishing emails to be sent to your employees to see if they click on links that they're not supposed to, for the purpose of educating them on the things to look for. So we'll send them emails that come from domain names which look weird, and we teach people how to go and take a look at those and then realize, I'm not actually getting a tax refund from the CRA. This email about the tax refund is coming from some other site, which is not actually coming from the CRA. So there's lots of different training content and videos and imagery and stuff that we share that'll help those employees learn a little bit more about what to be on the lookout for.
I heard fishing simulator, and in BC here, I think there are a lot of people who immediately go to getting in a boat and getting their gear out
Sadly, it's
to do some fishing.
Not that kind of fishing.
Not that kind of fishing that we're talking about here. Just before we let you go here, we've got an expert here. We're picking your brain. Give our listeners your top 3 kind of quick tips for some basic steps they can take today to enhance their cybersecurity efforts. And I'm going to go ahead and guess the first step is going to be to go ahead and sign up for your Dynarisk tools through E&O.
Absolutely. So there's a risk report which all members get. The program is mentioned in there. A program's called CyberGuard. To sign up for it, you go to the REOIC website, REEOIC.com. There's a licensee portal. You just click on the button on the top right-hand side that says licensee. You enter a password that you get from the risk report or from contacting REOIC. And you just go in and then click on the CyberGuard program, which has all the instructions on how to register, our phone number, etc. I can tell you the program has had lots of traction with realtors already. We've already got more than 250 realtors signed up using the product.
Wow.
We've found over 30,000 leaked data records, which are these username password combinations or people's physical addresses,
30,000?
30,000.
Wow.
That is correct.
Wow.
24,000 occurrences of hackers talking about BC realtors, either attempting break-ins or have already carried out a break-in of some sort. And approximately 1,000 vulnerabilities have been found. So, we know realtors are using it. We know they're getting value from it, and we're finding lots of interesting things. And so once you know that there's an issue, then you can start to decide what you want to do about it. Whereas before, you might not know, and you're just proceeding as if everything is fine when not everything is fine. And then just a couple of other tips beyond obviously signing up for the program. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but enable two-step verification everywhere. And unfortunately, it's not enabled by default in a lot of places, or companies have decided to not turn it on for various reasons. And so highly recommend that gets turned on wherever you can turn it on. And absolutely use a password manager. It's too complicated to keep track of 87 different passwords. You don't want to use the same password to log in everywhere. So please use a password manager and turn on that two-step verification.
That's perfect. I think those are some really digestible things that our listeners can take away from listening to this conversation today. Andrew, thank you so much for letting us pick your brain today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jesse. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the start of the show, safeguarding your online business and all the sensitive client data you work with is one of the most critical paths you walk as a realtor. Why wouldn't you take advantage of a tool that's so comprehensive, so easy, and so free as Cyber Expert and Data Breach? And to sign up, all you really need to do is go to the E&O website. Andrew mentioned it before, REEOIC.com. You can also find links through all of the information we've put out on our member blog, and that's membernews.gvrealtors.ca. You'll find some comprehensive information and links to more information and signups for both of these tools. So yeah, get out there and get yourself protected today. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm Jesse Lalime, and I'll see you down the next critical path.